Hey, lovely sellers. I've had quite a few questions this week or this last couple of days about the updates that Etsy have made to their policies, their creativity standards. And what is really interesting about this is they didn't actually notify anybody about this. They have just quietly made some changes, which they are prone to doing. So we have to keep on top of things. The reason that a lot of this is popping up now, as you might have seen in Facebook groups and things like that, is because people are getting listings shut down. And as it transpires, it's because of potentially some of these new restrictions. Okay, so what I've done is I've gone back into the Wayback Machine. I have had a look at this page when they first launched it last year, last July I think it was, and then I've pulled up this year and I've compared the two side by side so we can specifically see what has changed. So there's a couple of wording changes and apostrophes, things like that we definitely don't need to worry about, but the big things that we need to know about are what I've highlighted here. So I'm not going to go line by line through what you can and can't sell on Etsy. This should be, you should already have read the handbook, you should already have read this, you should already know what you can and can't sell on Etsy. This is just going to be about what has changed in the policies, okay? So the first thing that I noticed was this line here. So if you are using computerized tools like a Cricut machine, a laser printer, a 3D printer, previously this line here said these items may be produced based on a seller's original design. It now says they must be produced based on a seller's original design. So what this essentially means is you can't go and buy a template for a Cricut, pattern or a laser printing pattern, whatever it might be, and buy that kind of commercially available, or buy it from another seller or whatever it might be, and then use their design in your final product and call it handmade, right? So you would have to design the pattern that you are cutting out on the Cricut machine yourself. You couldn't just go and buy one and then cut it out and call it handmade, right? So that's the big thing that has changed here. There's a little bit of a change to this line here in terms of what don't qualify as made by a seller. So this has always been the same here. An item assembled by a seller per the manufacturer's instructions, like a Lego set, a furniture pack, that's never been allowed, okay? Commercially available base item with only a superficial alteration. The thing that's changed here is they added in this superficial alteration aspect, because previously I think it said things like, I've got it here, it said adding simple stick-on adornment such as commercially available sticker, stamp or rhinestone to a commercially available base item. This now says a commercially available base item with only a superficial alteration such as addition of a simple mass-produced stick-on adornment, right? So just a slight change in wording. I don't think the sentiment of what is or isn't allowed has changed there. This feels like basically the same thing, okay? They're just kind of tightening the wording here. So then let me just check. This is just giving you some more examples. This has always been the same. So for example, a commercially available face mask with a sticker added on it, a Lego set assembled according to the manufacturer's instructions. It doesn't class as handmade, right? If we come into design by a seller, most of this hasn't changed. There's a little bit of wording that changed around the bundle, collection, scan, or PDF of someone else's work. They changed the general wording, but actually they haven't changed the sentiment of it here. So let me just see what it says. Originally it said selling a bundle, collection, scan, or PDF of someone else's work as a digital download. They've taken that digital download element out of it, but you're only selling a bundle, collection, scan, or PDF of someone else's work as a digital download, right? Or potentially, maybe you would be selling a bundle of printed prints that are based on someone else's work that wouldn't class as designed by a seller. Okay. So, all right, sorry, I'm having some problems with Loom today, but hopefully this sticks. So if we then come down into handpicked by a seller, this is basically either items handpicked by a seller include vintage items, so anything over 20 years old, items sourced from nature, e.g. rocks, shells, fossils, gift baskets, but they have to be specifically themed around a situation, like new dog parents, maybe new baby. It has to be very much sourced around a very specific situation, right? So if we come down here, the only thing I can really see that has changed here is this disqualifier for resold items from nature if you have bought them from a commercial place, right? So if you have bought a bag of rocks from, this says Home Depot in the UK, that might be B&Q, Home Bargains, what they call the Range, B&M, places like that. You could go and buy a box of, garden rocks and potentially have resold them based on the looser version of this restrictions last time. They have added in that you can't do that now, right? So you have to have collected them yourself, which makes sense. Etsy is all about handmade and designed and, about the individual seller. So for me, this one makes total sense. And then sourced by a seller is more your craft and party supplies. So this has always been allowed on Etsy. The only things I can see here that have changed, there's a few more examples of things you can't sell. The big things that has changed, or not the big things, sorry, the small thing that's changed here is previously this line said table decorations, balloons and streamers, holiday decor, party favors and gift wrap. And it now says festive table decorations, balloons and streamers, gift wrap, right? So it's basically, again, it's just doubling down on this idea of the primary purpose of it is to decorate a special event to give a unique or personal aesthetic, whereas you couldn't then just go, so with the initial example, maybe table decorations, balloons and streamers, maybe you could have sold a bundle of those things, like a load of balloons and streamers and whatever, as a mismatch, as like a big box. And now they're being specific, it has to be to decorate a special event, right? It needs to be unique or an aesthetic or whatever it might be. It's just to kind of, crack down on anyone just kind of drop shipping and bulk selling things without any kind of thought and feeling, right? And then they've also removed these lines here. So they've added in these lines here. Resold generic cooking tools or ingredients, chemical compounds. I'm pretty sure this was always not allowed on Etsy. Automotive bicycle parts and repair tools, office construction, gardening, cosmetic or home DIY supplies. So if you're thinking here, this is more, feels like tools for like renovations and, tools for your office, like potentially even, it's a bit of a confusing one, that, because resold generic cooking tools like office stuff, does that mean you can't sell, printers? Could you sell printers before? I'm not 100% sure. But if you're in this space, this is where I would really look into the ins and outs of this, because this is what has changed, right? Generic resold items that may be used at a party but are either not decor or also have everyday uses, such as plain furniture, generic tableware, stage lights, speakers, costumes, party favors, and seasonal festive decor, not specific to a single gathering or celebration. Now, if you think about this, this is not handmade stuff. This is stuff that is commercially sourced. And this is the reason that Etsy is kind of cracking down on these things, so that people aren't just going buying all of the Halloween kids costumes from Asda and throwing them onto Etsy because they can sell party wear, right? It's just not what Etsy wants to be known for. Okay, so it's all about essentially bringing that handmade, that kind of bringing things back to what they're trying to do is bring things back to Etsy's roots of more handmade, hand design, more personality, more individuality, things to be a little bit more unique. Etsy's going down this route with their marketing of finding something special and different and unique. And so this is why this kind of stuff is being cracked down on, because ultimately this doesn't align with who they're trying to, make sure people know they are, right? The other thing that changed here is you can use photo or video content of the items or commercial images. So if you have commercially sourced this, you could actually use imagery from the supplier. Okay, so these are the big things that have actually changed. I had some specific questions around a couple of the areas that I think are most relevant to us. So let's just dive into those. So first one was, if I painted some bookmarks and had them printed by Vistaprint, that would be handmade with a production partner, made by a seller with a production partner, I believe, which I think would then show up as designed by a seller. So yeah, seller's original designs produced by a production partner, right? So it comes under design by a seller. For your painted bookmarks that you've used a production partner to create, that's absolutely fine. They're okay with that, right? Because it's your unique original design. If I got some slate from Hobbycraft, painted it and stuck it on my handmade cards, that would be handmade, because you are sourcing items from Hobbycraft to use in your handmade designs. That's absolutely okay. So if we come back to handmade here, where we talk about hand-altered items, commercially available base items that sellers altered using, specialised handcrafting skills like hand embroidering flowers onto a tote bag or upholstering a piece of furniture with new fabric. Commercially available supplies or components that a seller attach together or combine by hand to create a unique end product, right? You're illustrating your card, you are painting onto a piece of slate, you are assembling that onto your card. It's handmade, it's made by a seller, okay? Buying frames to frame my art or sea glass, I think would still come under handmade, because it would still come under handmade because you are using commercially available supplies or components to create a unique end product, because the unique end product is your handcrafted, hand illustrated item. Okay, so all of yours would still come under either handcrafted by or designed by. The other question I had here was specifically regarding the use of clip art in a design. You put multiple clip art elements together, not just slapping a clip art as is on a shirt, which is already prohibited. Yeah, so we know under design by a seller, you can't just take a random clip art, throw it on a shirt or a mug or whatever and say it's handmade or say it's designed by a seller. Right? That is not allowed on Etsy because it is not your an original design. Okay, this is all about, and it's like how if you think about Canva's restrictions as well, you can't just download individual items because you have to have created a unique design on Canva, right? So it kind of classes as the same thing with clip art, where if you are creating this unique end piece, then that is okay. If you are just finding a commercially available clip art, that is not okay. Okay, excuse me a second. So yeah, there's nothing specific about clip art in here, but I think because, and I know that the seller who is doing this, I know you are creating one of a kind, very unique products with lots of different clip arts, and it's obviously it's taking hours to generate a very unique piece of art. At the end of the day, it's not just a 3 pieces of Canva AI, Canva clip art thrown onto a page. Then I think you're absolutely safe with what you are doing there. It's just more that, and this again hasn't changed. You can't just sell, these one-off clip art items that are not your own. So hopefully that covers most of the questions. I'm more than happy to dive into any of this a little bit deeper. If anybody's worried about any of this, you need to make sure you've read through everything in the first place, because this is really important that we are sticking with the rules. But I think that my take on this is Etsy is really trying to do better at cracking down on everything being the same on Etsy, right? So how last year they announced, or was it earlier this year? I can't remember now. It all blurs together. They announced how they were going to be more carefully monitoring how often the same or very similar images showed in search, and only showing one, because they don't want people coming to Etsy and just seeing the same person or the same, 100 shops selling the same clip art from Canva, selling the same clip art that they found on Creative Fabrica and thrown onto a mug, right? Now, this is a classic case of they're deciding to crack down on something, but they're also trying to become what they used to be, which was all around handmade, create a platform for artists, a platform for creatives. It diluted a lot over the last few years, and they're trying to pull it back, but they're obviously making plenty of revenue from the people who are selling these things through their fees, that they don't want to just shut it down altogether. So they're slowly just pulling back to the handmade, the roots of what Etsy is. And when I say handmade, don't think for a minute I mean, only if you're knitting or, making pottery or anything. That is obviously a huge part of it, but, designers, illustrators, all welcome on Etsy as well. They are essentially still trying to push away and repel and shut down listings for people who are, for want of a better word, lazy. Okay, they are not creating these listings themselves. They're not creating this stuff themselves. Sorry, they are very much just slapping commercially available things together and wanting to make fast cash from it, right? And everybody is entitled to create their businesses in the way they want to, but Etsy is not the platform for that, right? So this is my take on it. Etsy is essentially bringing us back to the root of what Etsy is, which is amazing. It's trying to be a special place for creatives, for makers, for designers, illustrators, through and through. And ultimately, they can't just do this overnight because they're making so much revenue from the people who are selling other things, but also, they're trying to just crack down on the people that are maybe not putting their heart and soul into actually creating something unique and individual that buyers actually really, really want. Because the thing is, at the end of the day, if you are selling things like tools, the tools that are not allowed, the engine oils or whatever it was, just sell them on Amazon, sell them on eBay. There's loads of other platforms for that make more sense. Etsy's not about that, right? Etsy isn't just an open market of, and this is the thing, they don't want to become the next Amazon. They don't want to become the place that you can go and buy anything from. They're trying to be, we saw it with gift mode last year. They're trying, we saw it with the big push on gift mode last year. We see it with the personalization push this year. They're getting really targeted to curating these experiences for customers. They want to be a place to find something special, to find something unique, to find something different, right? So if you just keep that in mind when you're reading these policies through, you'll kind of see what they're getting at here. This isn't a, oh, Etsy's doing it again, they're ruining everything. This is a trying to bring Etsy back to what it was and make it a better shopping experience for the buyers, and make it a better experience for the sellers as well, ultimately, because at the end of the day, it's very difficult to compete when people are throwing mass-produced items on top of your handmade products that you can't make at the same scale that they can, right? So I hope that gives a bit of context too. Happy to answer any questions on this. Let me know if you have any, and I will catch you all later.